So here's what we want to do. We have a select area and we need to fill that with prices for the user. Once the user chooses a price, we want a list of links to all the pages with that price to appear inside of this UL. The first thing we're going to do is set up our JavaScript. So here I'm targeting the select area, or the select that allows us to grab the prices. And then I'm also defining the page list. So these two elements correspond to these two over on our page. Now we want to make sure the select exists, because if it doesn't, we don't want to do anything. And if it does, we want to get pricing options. This disables our select area, because until we load pricing options, we don't want the user to be able to do anything. We're then going to define a data object that has security and an action. Now this action is your Ajax call, and then security we're grabbing from our local variable, which is defined inside of the scripts area. So we define local variables by using WP localized script, and you'll notice here I have Ajax URL and security, and the variable nklocal comes from the object name. So once we've got that data, we're going to make a call to our Ajax function. Now this is a custom function I've written, but all it is the jQuery Ajax call, just a fancy way of writing it. So we're providing it data, and then we're providing a success and a fail callback, which we call here. So nothing major. So we have our data, which is this. And then I define a function. So what happens if we're successful? We would execute this. Now, what we're expecting back, and what we'll look at in a moment, is what the Ajax call outputs. We're expecting some sort of response data. And if we have that, we want to loop through it and create options that define a price and a value. And then obviously, if we are successful and we fill the array, or I'm sorry, we fill the select with prices, we want to make sure we enable the select so the user can choose. So let's come back up here. We've defined our pricing options. The user can now look at a list of prices and they'll be able to choose them. What happens next? We want to put an onChange action. So anytime this select changes, meaning the user does something, we want to call render pages. And let's take a look at what that does. You'll notice the exact same thing. We are asking for what the selected value is. So is it $100, $200? And then we're adding that to our Ajax call data. So again, we're defining security. We're defining a different Ajax call. Notice this one is get posts with meta. This one is render list of posts. And then whatever the selected value is, the price, we're passing that along as well. And again, we're doing the exact same thing. If we're successful, we want to do something. Well, what we want to do here is we're going to be passing the title and the link, and we want to build a list element with a link and the title, and then we're going to append that to our page list. And remember here, we have our page list. So we're going to be creating li elements that will go in here and show us a list of links. So let's get into how these Ajax calls work. First, we're going to, this is our functions.php. We're going to define our custom JS, meaning we want to make sure that gets called. And we also want to make sure jQuery is a dependency. And then we're going to localize that script, as I mentioned earlier, providing it with the Ajax URL and the security. So here's our first Ajax call. You'll notice there's two actions defined here. One is WP Ajax and one is WP Ajax no priv. We use no privileges to allow non-logged in users to call Ajax. And the reason we want to make sure we're checking security, which is what we're doing here, WP verify, we want to make sure that we are checking security in case bad guys are trying to do something, because we are allowing non-logged in users. So once we've checked security, this is our first Ajax call. The goal of this function is to get a list of prices. And so just for cleanliness, I split this up into two functions. So I'm calling this function here, the query meta posts, and this should look familiar. I'm just simply defining grab all the posts with the meta key of bricks1, execute a query. Here's our options array. This should look familiar. We are grabbing the post if it exists, get the field, and then we're only inserting it inside of the option if it doesn't exist already. Now, a quick note here, I don't have advanced custom fields installed, so I defined my own get field function, but if you have advanced custom fields, you won't need to do that. So I just needed to make sure that this would work. Okay, so what this is going to do is return an array of options, and again, it's going to define all of those different prices here. So this response is this call right here. And notice that I'm encoding JSON here. That's a PHP function, and I'm just passing it an array, and here's my options. So you'll notice we have data, the data element here, and I'm looking for a data element here. So if I have a data element, I can expect this is a key value, so here's your key, and here's your value. I'm expecting the value to be price, and I'm generating those options. So here's our second Ajax call. We're going to check for security again. We're also going to check and make sure a price is passed. So if you recall, when we call render pages, we're passing in a price. So we want to make sure that that price comes through. If it doesn't, we're going to kill the script. And then if that price does come through, we're going to pass it to this function. And again, just for cleanliness, I created a second function. So this function expects a price, and we're going to use the WordPress query meta key of prix1 and meta value of price. So not only are we looking for posts with the meta key of prix1, we also want to make sure to find the meta value of $100, $200, whatever it may be. And again, we're doing the exact same thing. We're going to query the database. We're no longer going to worry about duplicates. And then we're going to build an array using the array key as the title and the array value as the link to the post itself. And then obviously, we want to make sure we find posts. If we do, we will return those links in this function. And again, all we're doing is going to be sending those to the data node, encoding with JSON. So that is where we see the data node here. Now, again, this function expects key and value. So now I have title and link. Let's take a look at that just one more time. If we look here, I'm building my array. Here's my key, the title, and here's my value, the URL. So here's my title, and here's my link. So here's our LI. We're going to pass the link here, and we're going to pass the title, and then we're simply going to append it to the HTML. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I used some dummy data, and this is a local WordPress environment, and I added a bunch of prices. So let's refresh. Here we have our prices, and there's a few of these duplicated, but obviously our script is working. We have no duplicate pricing. If I select 400, here's my post. And if I go ahead and select 250, here we go. Looks like our Ajax is working.